You know when you just get so tired of doing the same thing over and over and over, but you have to if you want anything to change and if you don't want to sit by and be complacent and let them get away with it, basically. What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q here from Retro Q Gaming, and of course, Epic are at it again. Now, we knew it was going to happen. We knew it was never going to stop, despite what they claimed that they would. But, well, we know better because, yikes. But anyway, this time we have SEGA, Creative Assembly, and Total War Saga Troy. Now, naturally, as you would expect, it has been announced today that a Total War Saga Troy is an Epic Game Store timed exclusive. Now, we have a very lengthy statement that they put out in order to, let's say, kind of quell the outrage or answer the questions, if you will. Now, there's two very important things I want to say in regards to this before we go on. Like I said, we do have a very lengthy statement. We'll break it down paragraph by paragraph, piece by piece, and we will talk about the individual parts of said paragraphs as we go. But before we do that, the two big important things I want to say is the fact that you have to preface a release with something like this really shows the negative stigma associated with your toxic store and toxic brand. I'm not saying Sega or Creative Assembly or Total War, but Epic Games literally have to, well, developers who associate with them, with this scummy company, they have to do this. Now, ultimately, they basically, realistically don't care. They've been, at the end of the day, they've been given more money than they stand to lose, likely. Most likely. We don't have an exact number, but it is typically that way. Otherwise, they wouldn't do this. They would look at the financial numbers and they would look at the risk and reward, and yeah, you get the idea. That's how this thing works. Now, the whole stigma and all of this, like I said, it speaks volumes about your, I was going to say product, but again, may think I'm talking about Troy, but it speaks volumes about your brand in the case of the Epic Game Store. It speaks volumes about your company and your store. Anyway, we have a pretty lengthy one here, so let's get into it, but yikes. Here it is, a Total War Saga Troy is an Epic Game Store exclusive for 12 months and will be available for free if you claim it in the first 24 hours. More about that part now in a second, by the way. Anyway, back to the quote. That's right, we're giving away Troy for free to keep as long as you claim it in the 24-hour window. We're really excited about Troy, and we're even more excited that this will give more of you the chance to play and enjoy it than might have had it otherwise. While we know that some of you won't like the Epic Game Store exclusivity, we feel this is a great opportunity for us in a lot of ways, and we're hoping that you'll take some time to hear us out and for us to answer what some of the questions we think you might have. Now, Q here again, back from the actual statement, but part of this is them pretending to be open and basically being cute about it by addressing it all together. But ultimately, by the time we dig through this whole thing, you will see that they essentially say nothing and they lie. And that's basically it. Now, remember when I said a moment ago that they were giving away Troy for free for the first 24 hours? Again, this ties back. Imagine how negative, how toxic, how basically outcast, and how no one cares and how irrelevant your store is for anything other than Fortnite and Unreal Engine development, that you have to give away a brand new game day one for 24 hours that you have paid millions and millions of dollars for. This is the only way you can attempt to even get away with something like this. You see why it stands out so much. But let's get back to the quote at hand here anyway. First of all, this is an opportunity for Troy specifically, and we have no plans for future games to be Epic exclusives. As developers, we truly value our existing fans, but at the same time, we want to reach new audiences and have as many people as possible experiencing the thrill of Total War for themselves. As a business, that means putting Total War onto new platforms so that it can reach more players. This is part of that, and in principle, we'd like future Total War titles to be simultaneously available from launch day on as many storefronts as possible. Q here again, we're going to break down this individual paragraph that we just looked at. So remember, no future plans to be Epic exclusive for other games, just Troy only. Naturally, I will be saving screen caps of all of this as I do come with receipts and I don't trust companies and businesses and whatnot. But of course, the important thing is the wording, the very specific wording they used here. It's wording that implies they won't be doing this going forward to help us, to assuade us, to persuade us to spend more money, to assuade our fears, if you will, to say, oh, well, they're just doing it this one time, they're still looking out for us. But of course, wording like this, it gives no absolutes. You know why? Because they are open to this in the future. Clearly, they are open to it now and already. But it gives people, with this wording, at least that's the way these marketing guys work with it. I know I've worked with some people like who have master's degrees in the marketing fields, but, well, it gives them hope, if you will, to not automatically discount SEGA, not automatically discount Creative Assembly, not automatically discount Total War just from the get-go. As it was explained to me before by guys in marketing, a non-answer or a vague answer or a non-committal answer is always 100% better than saying no. But just to pick apart another little bit of this paragraph here, they even claim it's to get available and to get across and in front of the widest audience. To do this, they have to release on what they call a different storefront. A smaller storefront, by the way. This is, of course, all my words. But they're claiming to do this, they need to release on a smaller storefront. A single smaller storefront, not multiple storefronts, not a single larger storefront. Of course, there is no single larger storefront. Steam is the biggest gaming platform in the world. But again, this goes back when I pointed out that ultimately they are saying nothing and just lying to you. Anyway, let's go back to the rest of this quote here. Right now, this is a one-time, one-year exclusive deal for Troy. We've always said that SEGA titles allow us to experiment, and this is an experiment on a grand scale. Troy seemed like a good game to try this out with, especially as pre-orders aren't live on Steam yet, so no one's already put money into a store that they'll have to wait 12 extra months for it to appear on. So again, they're reinforcing and reiterating the possibility that this is only a one-time 12-month deal and that SEGA games, well, they don't really count. They're not our real games. Don't pay attention to this. It's the big stuff you want on Steam. It's the real games. This is a spin-off. It's a side game. It's an experiment. We can do all sorts of crazy stuff. Don't worry about it at all. And then, of course, they go on to damage control it a little bit more by saying the whole pre-orders haven't gone live on Steam and you'd have to wait 12 extra months and be salty about that. Again, damage control. It almost sounds like they're implying that that is Steam's problem and not SEGA, Creative Assembly and Epic Games' fault. So let's go back to the actual quote again because it's still a pretty hefty one. So now that that's out of the way, here's a little more backstory. Epic approached us and asked us if Troy could be an Epic exclusive as part of a commercial deal. That's not to say that we immediately signed on the dotted line or that money was the only reason that we did it, and then in brackets they had the nerve to say, "It's not!" exclamation mark. It was a difficult decision, and you can be assured that there were a lot of differing opinions in the studio, and a lot of discussions about it, which largely focused on what it would mean for you, the players. So let's break this one down a little bit, because this one is part, if not the most egregious one, the most egregious lies, if you will. So Epic Games approached them about this as part of a, and I want to stress this, commercial deal. Right there, game over, end of story. Everything they have said previous in regards to being cutesy about it and trying to justify it, everything they will say going forward, commercial deal. Everything is invalid right there. If you have any inkling about this at all and how this stuff works, if you believe for a second that the only discussions about this, that the ones that weren't had, that anymore that were actually important about these discussions and what it would mean and all, were literally just running the numbers. It was running the numbers. It was the executives, the accountants, the business projections, all of that. They were running the numbers with the previous sales, with how this was running with social media numbers and impressions and whatnot. It was all combining that. Development costs, what Epic were offering, previous series sales numbers, etc. And they just ran that. If they expect you to believe that anything else, especially because they went and said money isn't the only reason we did it, the fact that they tried to say that any of these internal discussions of differing opinions, if any of these were made, guess what? They were developer level stuff. You know what that means? You know what that matters and what kind of weight it carries in the end? Nothing. The publisher controls all of this. They can release your game because they have paid you to make this game. They own the rights and licenses to your game, the IPs, they own all of this stuff. And they can do what they want with it. The head of the studio could tell SEGA to go fuck themselves, and SEGA could just release it on Epic and take all the money anyway. It is publisher level stuff. You could have every single developer, every single artist, everyone in the studio against it, and it would make no difference. It's not their call. And then, of course, they tried to damage control it a little bit more and say, but we were thinking of you when we did this. We were thinking of you when we took it away from the biggest gaming platform in the world and put it onto the other one that has a massive negative stigma, huge backlash and everyone hates. But we didn't do it for the money. We put it on that smaller store for everyone else. The biggest audience that's not the biggest audience. But anyway, let's go back to the actual quote yet again. However, ultimately we considered two things. First, we're at a time when we're looking to invest more into the ongoing development of Total War. This felt like an opportunity to really move the franchise forward by getting it in front of more people. Secondly, Epic were paying for our players to have our latest release free on day one. For Total War's 20th birthday, that felt like an opportunity too good to pass up. So, cue here again, let's go back and break this one down. I do want to, of course, before we break this one down, I want to reiterate how all of this was completely invalid because it was part of a massive commercial deal where Epic paid them millions upon millions of dollars just for all of this. But let's break down some of the individual stuff they said here. They're looking to invest more in it. So they're looking to invest more in a series that has become bigger and bigger and bigger as it is over time. Naturally, invest more requires manpower, funds, salaries, studios, time, etc. Well, guess what, Creative Assembly? You're owned by SEGA, a billion-dollar publisher. You are not going to play successfully anyway. We're a poor little indie dev with not enough money to make the game we want. No, you don't get to play that card. And then they do the usual, well, we're going to get it in front of more players, again, by releasing on a smaller store, exclusively on a smaller store. Yeah, I mean, people only open the Epic Game Store to claim free games and never play them. That or play Fortnite and use the Unreal Engine. So, once again, shenanigans. And even the 24-hour day one free period doesn't automatically guarantee bigger numbers or a bigger audience. Every single person could claim this game. But that doesn't mean they're going to play it, love it, and go to Steam, a different launcher because the stuff's not available on the one they got this one on, and invest in the rest of the series. Hell, it doesn't even guarantee that they will play it. I have a bunch of games that were free on the Epic Game Store when they gave them away before I stopped even bothering. I believe I have like 4 or 6 of them at the moment. Guess how many of them I've played? I played Axiom Verge for about 2 minutes. Everything else, I haven't even installed. And guess what? I know many people who do claim every free game, and I don't know any of them who have played a single one. So let's go back to the quote here. As mentioned, and like others in the industry, a key reason for exploring other digital stores is that we don't want to be limited just to Steam. We also want to diversify our business. In fact, we want to get our games onto as many stores as possible. I'm going to interrupt here, this is Q again, and I'm just going to reiterate that sentence one more time. In fact, we want to get our games onto as many stores as possible. And they decided that this was a good idea by launching exclusively on one store. Anyway, back to the quote. Long term, we want to expand where players find Total War. This deal gives us a great way to try out other platforms such as Epic to see what works for us and what doesn't. It allows us to get a feel for the development required to expand to other platforms, and it's relatively risk-free for you, too, as the game's available for free when claimed in the first 24 hours. Yikes, this one is a big oof, but let's go again here. They don't want to be limited to just Steam. How do you process this the easiest way? Because remember, Steam is the biggest gaming platform in the world, but the big obvious one here is then don't launch exclusively on one store, be it a free one, in which case when you launched on Steam because they didn't pay you to get exclusivity of the game, or Epic Games, where they're paying you for it, but you're not launching on multiple stores. So this isn't forcing exclusivity, just like these are. And they say things like expanding and how they need to get a feel for development required to expand to other platforms. There's nothing like that. There's just nothing, you don't need anything like that at all. That's not how this works. But let's go back to the next quote here anyway. This opportunity allows expansive back-end infrastructure development that would allow us to expand into multiple stores. That means we can have more resources, push ourselves further, be more creative, make Total War, and we're always looking to evolve and improve on our games, and this deal gives us a lot of ways to do that. As we said, fresh perspectives, money that we'll be putting back into the studio, remember they just mentioned money, and new ways to expand. You might not immediately see a big change, but we're confident you will over time, and we guarantee there are a lot of things behind the scenes being made possible due to this, which we wouldn't otherwise have the chance to do so. Some of this is long term, but there are short term benefits to you as well as us. So there's not much to say in this particular paragraph other than reinforcing two things that we've mentioned multiple times already before. One, you are owned by SEGA. You have no shortage of resources, of money, of development, of anything. You're owned by billion-dollar companies. And this whole thing about improving back-end and that will help everything evolve, it doesn't work that way. Epic's server and using them for multiplayer and stuff like that doesn't require a massive, completely new system overhaul, to the point where it revolutionizes game development and online multiplayer that will revolutionize the industry on other platforms. Anyway, back to the quote, we're just about done. Making it available for free for everyone to keep during the first 24 hours wouldn't have been possible without this deal. Again, they just want to reinforce this whole, well, it's free, don't take it out on us, it's free, it's free, it's free, it's free, we're sorry, it's free. Don't be mad, we got millions and probably tens of millions for this. 2 more paragraphs, I promise we're just about done. Finally, we've got just one favour to ask. However you feel about this, please keep any criticism to the studio as a whole and don't take it out on individual employees that you might find on various social media platforms. We get it, it's unexpected, but they're not going to be able to change anything and probably weren't the ones who made the decision regardless. Now, back to what my comments on this one are. They said don't take it out on employees. I 100% agree with this. It's not up to them. They probably had no input and no legitimate input because, like I said, this is a decision and a choice made by publishing executives at SEGA, not Creative Assembly or anything in along those lines. Not coders, not developers, not artists, not musicians, etc. Which is especially funny because in this paragraph that they said that they wouldn't be able to change it and probably weren't even the ones that made the decision. You mean like the people that you claim to have legitimate input earlier in the statement? Yeah, because they were never high enough in the equation to ever have any say, even prior to this whole thing. I mean, sure, it was probably cute and came across in a good way that SEGA may have asked everyone in the studio to do this, and how they felt about all of this, but the decision was probably already made before that anyway. But it looks good on the company, right? Last paragraph, guys, we're just about done. We really think you love Troy, and hey, it's free, so definitely give it a shot. Redeem your 24-hour freebie and enjoy the game. If not, it'll just be a year until it's available on Steam. Ultimately, we think this is good for our players, good for Creative Assembly, and therefore good for Total War. Thank you for reading. So despite much earlier in this one where they said, whoa, dude, it's like a whole year, man. It's like so far away. We're sorry, bro. Let us explain to you in this 74-page essay why we're sorry, but we did it anyway, and it's the best for you and the best for us. But it's like a year, bro. It's like so far away. And now they're saying, well, I mean, it's only a year, guys. Come on, am I right? That took a dark turn. But anyway, all I can say is everything that I've said during this, I would just reiterate it. But realistically, there's just one or two major points that I want to reinforce. It's not even about this individual situation, but it's just when the entire negative stigma and the entire PR of your company and your store, Epic Games in this case, is so bad and so toxic, your image is so poisoned, that you literally have to give away brand new games for free on day one that you've already paid millions and millions of dollars for. Well, you know your store, your brand is negative, it's toxic, it's rightfully vilified, and people hate it. They don't fall for all these traps. And that's why they continue to do this, because they're not winning. If everyone was buying every new game on Epic instead of Steam now, if they were multi-store at least anyway, that would be a whole other story. If people were switching over, they wouldn't need to be giving everything away for free.